IT Expo, Los Angeles, California, 2008.
John Arnold here with another interview at the IT Expo here in Los Angeles. I'm doing a series of interviews here at the show for IP Convergence TV, and my guest today is Dan York. Welcome to the interview series here, Dan.
Great, glad to be here, John.
Great. So you are the Director of Emerging Communications Technologies at Voxeo, which is quite a story in itself. And of course you're very well known and highly regarded blogger in this whole wipe space and security, so you're very much in touch with a lot of the trends. So I want to get started here. You've just been speaking about some topics that I think are going to be very, very important to get to here. So I want to get into this whole area of voice-enabling communications with web services and not quite cloud computing, but certainly these areas where voice is moving more and more into the domain of data services and how it works with other forms of communication.
Sure. So, yeah, I just gave a speech on developing voice applications in the cloud and talking about we're at this neat moment in time when the vision we've all had for years about being able to push functionality out into the network clouds is here, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that with web applications, but now we're seeing it especially as well with voice and the ability to run your voice applications in a network cloud, in a hosted infrastructure, in a space that's out there. And so you've got a lot of incredible potential, and one of those potentials is that you can be able to interact with business processes running in internal clouds, if you will, in internal networks, and being able to go and connect through web services, through various different APIs. So it's an amazing time for that to happen right now.
So do you think this diminishes the value of voice for the end user, or does it really open the door for more enhanced applications and possibilities?
Well, I think in one way, if you look at it, voice is diminishing in our usage in one way because we're doing so much more with texting, with IM. Voice has emerged as just yet another modality of communication, another way we talk. But the interesting aspect is that now with these web services, we're able to bring web or voice back into usage where it wasn't necessarily able to do so before. Now you can bring, whether you use Facebook or a service like that, you can bring voice into those interactions there. You're in SAP and you want to call the person who created a purchase order. Now you can be able to call them right from a click on the screen. So you've been able to web enable those type of applications in ways you couldn't do that before. So on one level, we're bringing voice back into the picture where it was fading to a certain degree.
So what are some of the challenges that this creates for service providers? I mean, there's clearly convergence on the desktop of how we use applications, but there's also network convergence issues, and I'm sure service creation and service delivery issues. So how are service providers reacting to these new capabilities?
Well, I think you're seeing some of the service providers who are realizing that they need to provide these type of additional services. They can't just be, well, I mean, they can just wind up being big, fat, dumb pipes that carry just telephony, but they want to be more than that. So they need to look at how can they develop those environments. And so we're seeing service providers who work with us, for instance, to connect their clouds to our clouds for their telephony side, and connect to ours for application delivery or application creation and those type of things. And SIP has enabled it. And one of the challenges, I think, that service providers have to look at is how to do all that with open standards and in ways that avoid proprietary lock-in of the service providers to the other services that are out there, which is why we're a huge fan of open standards, because we're glad to compete on the support we offer and the services and everything else. We just think you should avoid lock-in and use standards.
Sure. So whose life is this making harder now? For the service provider or for the enterprises, the way they're running their networks? It's a good question, right?
It's a good question. I think it's making it more challenging for both, to be honest, because the service providers have to figure out how to interconnect with all of that, and the enterprises have to figure out how to connect in many cases their legacy apps and the issues, the data systems they've had for so many years, how they connect those to this new infrastructure. How can they SIP enable components that are out there, whether it's forklift or adding on something or what they have to go and do, and how to traverse firewalls and how to connect all that and how to do it all securely.
Sure. So where does the road lead to, say, a year or two down this path?
Well, I think we're increasingly moving to a place where we are building this interconnect between systems, this SIP-based interconnect, where, to a certain degree, we're bypassing what we know as the PSTN. We're creating a new post-PSTN space, and we're finally at the space where we're starting to really do that. I mean, we've been talking about that at these shows for years, right? maybe 10 years. Okay, but we're finding that the space where we're starting to get into that space where we are building that direct interconnection in that. With all of its challenges, with all of its security issues, with all the other issues, we're getting there. And I think that's where it leads, is when my company can connect directly to your company,
Yes.
to be able to go and have that kind of interaction. We can federate, we can do that type of stuff. So it's that's to me the big space we're going at now.
Okay, well, we'll save that for the next time around. Dan, thanks very much for joining us here today.
Thank you, John.